Peace will fill the world when we finally understand that only from within can it be spread throughout the land. Every single person living peace in what we do, only then will our dream come true. Only then will our dream come true. Only then will our dream come true.
Good morning, friends. I'm Leona Evans, minister at Unity of San Luis Obispo, an inclusive, progressive, spiritual community affirming the good in all life. Welcome to our Sunday morning live stream. I am delighted that you chose to join us this morning, and I'm also thrilled to be here. We have important work to do today, and the best way we can do that is by becoming fully present, relaxing our body in a comfortable position, and awakening our minds, giving our full attention to the spiritual work at hand today. And so let's begin by taking a deep breath and just making sure you're comfortable right where you are. Stress causes blocks in our consciousness, and it makes it much more challenging to try to concentrate and to try to focus. But when your body is relaxed, that focus comes with much greater ease. There's not anything to fight, only something to learn. So take a deep breath once again. Feel your mind and heart awakening. Feel the focus of your attention on this present moment. Let us give thanks that today is the day that we can learn something and teach something. Today is the day when changes can be made in our lives because of our deeper and fuller realization of how important that change is to us, to all those around us, and the planet itself. Let us affirm our invocation together. I am now in the presence of pure being, immersed in the Holy Spirit of life, love, and wisdom. Let's speak these words again together. I am now in the presence of pure being, immersed in the Holy Spirit of life, love, and wisdom. And so it is. Amen. Let's begin our service as always with a wonderful joy song sung by Matthew J. Evans.
Good morning. Today we're going to sing Thank You. Please sing along with the lyrics on the bottom of the screen. Thank you for your peace that fills us so sweetly and comforts and soothes us and holds us so gently in loving caresses, embracing the universe, making your children as one. Oh, how we thank you that your peace is growing within us and bringing us home, God, to you. Thank you for your light that keeps us in brightness and flows from within us, dispelling all darkness in streams of profusion, encircling the universe, making your children as one. Oh, how we thank you that your light is growing within us and bringing us home, God, to you. you for your love that binds us together and lifts us and heals us and goes on forever in spirals unending, uniting the universe, making your children as one. Oh, how we thank you that your love is growing within us and bringing us home, God, to you. Oh, how we thank you that your love is growing within us and bringing us home, God, to you. Have a great morning, everybody.
Thank you so much, Matthew. Beautiful job and a wonderful and important song. Many years ago, I believe it was 900 or 1,000 years ago, a great teacher named Meister Eckhart said this: "If the only prayer you ever said was thank you, that would be enough." Well, right now, we're facing a huge challenge in the world. Russia has attacked Ukraine. Russia believes that Ukraine should be under the jurisdiction of Russia. Ukraine feels differently. After many years of struggle in the early 1990s, Ukraine became free. And they want to keep it that way. And yet, since history repeats itself over and over and over again, I think pretty much until we learn how to handle it differently. We're reminded of such invasions and occupations in the late 30s and 40s. There has been an important affirmation about that time. Never again. Never again. And so I ask, what can we do? I say to myself, I'm not a politician. I'm not a military strategist. I don't have the background and the information about all the ins and outs of what's really happening. I can only say this, based on logic, that people in positions like this don't give away all their information for the world news. And so no matter what is being said or no matter what is being done, I can only surmise that I know maybe half, maybe less of what's really going on. And so I'm in no position to give advice. I'm in no position to decide what should be done and what shouldn't be done. Because, again, the strategies haven't been revealed to me or to any of us in the world of non-government. And so what do we do? What is the spiritual component involved in this? Well, you see, I've been looking, as well as the autocratic countries, I've been looking at our country, the United States of America. I've been looking at the infighting. I've been looking at the threats from both parties. I've been looking at infighting within the parties. And it has appeared, as others throughout the world have said, that the United States of America doesn't appear to be as strong as we once were, that perhaps we're preoccupied with the infighting and don't have a united front. What is the power of thought? The power of thought is the beginning of action. The action that we demonstrate in our lives is the predominant action that is outpictured in our country and in the world. And who is responsible for putting it to an end? To discover a different sense of priority, to recognize that no matter how powerful we are in smiting our enemy, that it's going to weaken us even more than it already has. This is not a picture that I personally want to hold on to in terms of the reputation of the United States of America as a power, and specifically a power for good. And what do I mean by good? I mean the highest good for all concerned. Naturally, I have a different way of looking at it than Putin has, but that doesn't mean that I would exclude him from the power of my prayers. I know that we are praying with the country of Ukraine to get what it wants and what we believe it deserves. It's freedom. Freedom to speak its own language, to not be connected with the Russians because people of Ukraine are tired of being called Russian. They have their own heritage. They have their own Slavic identity. They have their own language. And they have been enjoying their independence until now, when they're being threatened with annihilation. So what happens? What happens in our country when we're at war with each other and the people in power have the right to smite and control what other people want or believe are their rights? I'm not here this morning to take sides or argue points, except to say, from a metaphysical standpoint, thoughts held in mind and believed by a predominance of the people are going to be manifested in the world, and let us not bypass this moment to believe that what's happening in Russia and in Ukraine is any different from the grabbing for power and backbiting and cheating and using scare tactics to win in our very own Congress. I don't see a difference, only in intensity and in personalities. And so, this is not the time for shame or blame. I'm talking about a world consciousness in need of transformation. And we do that through the power of prayer, and we do that by no longer engaging in power struggles in our own lives and in our own country, by looking for and finding a different way to respond. And so I personally would invite all of you to get in touch with your congressperson and tell them that one of their strong constituents, us, needs the message to go to the White House that the people are tired of the fighting for power and struggle to gain dominance. We want Congress to come together in bipartisan ways, and we want them to put the interest of our country, our economy, our civil rights, reforming our justice system, giving rights to everyone to vote in convenient ways. Those need to be their priorities, because if they continue to infight, there can only be destruction. And even though somebody might win, it's not a real victory. It's a dominance, and it's doomed to failure, as history reminds us over and over and over again. Please ask your congressperson to tell lawmakers in Washington to focus on their job, which is to provide legislation for the dignity and respect for all American people. And my second request is that you include Vladimir Putin in your prayers. And why? Because there's one presence and one power, that power that we call God the Good, and no one that is living on this planet is outside of the realm of pure potential and all possibilities. And when I say pray, I don't mean beg him to stop invading. Because in our New Thought prayers, because of our lack of the bigger picture, we don't tell people what to do. We affirm the highest level of intelligence and benevolence and compassion for them. And that's what I would like us to do now. Affirm for Vladimir Putin as well as for all of the lawmakers in our country and throughout the world. Divine wisdom, divine compassion, peace of mind and heart, and an awareness of the oneness and unity of all life. Our intention is not to control what people do. It is to know that what they're doing comes from the highest level of love, compassion, and wisdom inside of them. And so for the next moment, I would like us to focus on the affirmation that will come up on the screen. To hold that thought, to integrate it into our consciousness, to speak it, to refrain from getting off on any other tangents that belong to a culture of violence, and focus on being part of the change we wish to see in our world. Let's take a moment now to listen to some wonderful music performed by Brett Mitchell and Matthew J. Evans. And after that, we'll celebrate Black History Month with an important and wonderful hero.
Here is a tune off of Frank Sinatra's last studio album. And the name of the album was called L.A. is My Lady. Strangely enough, it was recorded mostly in New York City, and closer to New Jersey, I guess, you see, where he's from. This is by John Kander and Fred Ebb. It's called The Best of Everything. So this will be about 1984. A one, a two, a 1, 2, 3, 4. The best of everything, that's what I wish you all. The best of everything, Rembrandt on your wall. A yacht that brings you cups, skateboards that style and speed, show dogs and loving pups, ride of a pound with a pedigree. I hope you win that prize, pass that blue ribbon test. Hope your good keeps getting better, till your better's best. With every wine you taste, with every song you sing, by now you may have guessed, I hope you get the best of everything. The best of everything, that's what I wish for you. The best of everything, a Rembrandt hanging on your wall. I hope you win that prize, pass that blue ribbon test. I hope your good keeps getting better, till your better's best. With every wine you taste, with every song you sing, by now you may have guessed, I hope you get the best of everything. The best of everything. I hope you get it. You deserve it. Isn't that right?
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. We all do, huh?
Thank you so much, Brett Mitchell and Matthew J. Evans, for a lovely rendition of a wonderful tune and great lyrics as well. You're right. We all deserve the best. Thank you so much. Well, this is our final week of Black History Month, and I have chosen a woman who is truly a hero and has a rich and powerful history. But just because we're celebrating Black History Month doesn't mean we want to stop celebrating Black history. There is so much to learn and so much opportunity to share this news with others. Today's hero is Sojourner Truth, and she was born into slavery in 1797 in upstate New York. Her name at birth was Isabella Baumfree. Her slave owners were Dutch, and so Isabella spoke Dutch until she was 9 years old. After learning English, she spoke it with a Dutch accent, not with a Southern accent, which surprised most people who heard her speak. Let me just say that when Isabella was an adult, she changed her name to Sojourner Truth. And so right now, until she has her name changed, I want to refer to her as Isabella. Well, Isabella was constantly beaten and raped during her time in slavery, and the man she loved more than anything was bought by another slave owner who would not allow them to be together. Slaves were not allowed to marry slaves from different owners because it was too hard to determine which children belonged to which owners. Now, the loss of this relationship haunted her throughout her life. Eventually, Isabella married another man, and she had 5 children. Now, in 1799, the state of New York began to legislate the abolition of slavery, but the process of emancipating the slaves was not completed until 1827. Isabella's slave owner promised to grant her her freedom the year before 1827, but he refused to honor his promise. So, as a result, in 1826, Isabella escaped to freedom with her infant daughter. She had to leave her other children behind because technically they would not be free until they reached the age of 21. Later on, she said, "I didn't run off. I didn't escape, for I thought that had to be wicked. But I walked off, believing that to be all right." She took refuge with another family and lived with them until New York State Emancipation Act was approved a year later. Now, when Isabella found that her 5-year-old son had been sold and illegally resold to an owner in Alabama, she took the issue to court. And with the help of her benevolent family, after months of legal proceedings, she got back her son. And this made her one of the first Black women to go to court against a white man and win the case. Now, Isabella had a life-changing religious experience during that time, and she became a devout Christian. In 1843, at the age of 46, she changed her name to Sojourner Truth because she heard the Spirit of God calling on her to preach the truth. She told her friends, "The Spirit calls me, and I must go." And she left to travel and preach about the abolition of slavery. The following year, she joined the Northampton Association of Education and History in Massachusetts. They supported women's rights, religious tolerance, and pacifism. During that time, she met Frederick Douglass and others who inspired her and encouraged her work as a speaker and abolitionist. And that year, she gave her first anti-slavery speech. That same year, she spoke at the first National Women's Rights Convention in Worcester, Massachusetts. In 1851, she went on a lecture tour, and in May, she attended the Ohio Women's Rights Convention in Akron, where she delivered her famous speech on women's rights, later known as "Ain't I a Woman?" Her speech demanded equal rights for all women. She also spoke as a former enslaved woman, calling for abolitionism and drawing from her strength as a laborer to make her equal rights claims. Now, Sojourner Truth never learned to read or write, and the speech she made was extemporaneous. And so different versions of this speech have been documented, but the most popular version was published 12 years later in May of 1863. In this version, Sojourner Truth's speech pattern appeared to have characteristics of Southern slaves, but because, if you remember, she was born and raised in New York and spoke only Dutch until she was 9 years old, it's highly unlikely she actually spoke that way. The most important thing is that her speech made a tremendous impact on history and proved her ability to be able to capture an audience in a powerful and provocative way. I would like to share that speech with you now to give you a bit of the flavor of how she captured and mesmerized audiences during that speech and subsequent speeches. And so, Ain't I a Woman by Sojourner Truth. Well, children, where there's so much racket, there must be something out of kilter. I think that twixt the Negroes of the South and the women at the North, all are talking about rights. And the white men will be in a fix pretty soon. But what's all this here talking about? That man over there, he says that women need to be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches and to have the best place everywhere. Well, nobody ever helped me into carriages or over mud puddles or gives me any best place. And ain't I a woman? Look at me. Look at my arm. I have plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man could head me. And ain't I a woman? I could work as much and eat as much as a man when I could get it, and bear the lash as well. And ain't I a woman? I have borne 13 children and seen most all sold off to slavery. And when I cried out with my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me. And ain't I a woman? Then they talk about this thing in the head. What is it that they call it? Yeah, intellect. You got it, honey. Intellect. What's that got to do with women's rights or Negroes' rights? If my cup won't hold but a pint and yours holds a quart, wouldn't you be mean not to let me have my little half measure full? Then that little man in the back there, he says women can't have as much rights as men because Christ wasn't a woman. Where did your Christ come from? Where did your Christ come from? From God and a woman. Man had nothing to do with him. If the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down all alone, these women together ought to be able to turn it back and get it right side up again. And now they're asking to do it. And the men better let him. Obliged to you for hearing me. And now old Sojourner ain't got nothing more to say. Over the next 10 years, Sojourner Truth spoke before hundreds of audiences. She met well-known activists, including Harriet Beecher Stowe, author of Uncle Tom's Cabin, and she spoke at the Broadway Tabernacle in New York City. Now, one day at Northampton, Massachusetts, Sojourner was set to speak at a large outdoor gathering when a band of rowdy young men disrupted the meeting by refusing to leave and threatening to burn down the tents. Sojourner hid behind a trunk in her tent, thinking that since she was the only black person present, her presence would incite the mob to riot. But as the noise of the mob increased, she muscled up her courage and decided that she had to do something. She went to a small hill nearby and began to sing a Christian hymn. She sang at full volume and sang with all her heart. And pretty soon, the rioters began to listen and gathered to hear her sing. She sang and she preached and she prayed for about an hour. And finally, the mob left the camp meeting peacefully. Sojourner faced many unruly audiences and always managed to address them with the strength of her character and the passion of her purpose. She would say, "You may hiss as much as you please, but women will get their rights anyway. You can't stop us either." When Sojourner spoke, she argued that because the push for equal rights had led to black men winning new rights, now was the best time to give black women the rights they deserve too. She kept saying, "We should keep things going while things are stirring." Sojourner emphasized women's right to vote. She told her audiences that she owned her own house, as did other women, and all of them paid taxes. Nevertheless, they were still unable to vote because they were women. Sojourner argued that black women who were enslaved were made to do hard manual work, and if these women were able to perform such tasks, then they should be allowed to vote, because frankly, voting is much easier than building roads. In her speeches, Sojourner proposed that black people be given their own land and move north and west because there were too many individuals in the South who objected to the abolishment of slavery. In 1856, Sojourner moved to Battle Creek, Michigan, and she continued her work for women's rights. During the Civil War, she helped recruit black troops for the Union Army. Her grandson, James Caldwell, also enlisted. Now, in 1870, Sojourner Truth tried to secure land grants from the federal government to former enslaved people. This was a project she pursued for 7 years without success. During that time, she had a meeting with President Grant in the White House, and she became active in his presidential re-election campaign. She even tried to vote on Election Day, but she was turned away by the polling place. Sojourner Truth spoke about abolition, women's rights, and prison reform. She also preached to the Michigan legislature against capital punishment. She developed many friends and supporters, including many influential people, including Susan B. Anthony. When Sojourner became ill, 2 of her daughters cared for her in the last years of her life. She died on November 26, 1883, at the age of 86, in her home at Battle Creek, Michigan. Nearly 1,000 people attended her funeral. Frederick Douglass gave a eulogy for her in Washington, D.C. He said, "Venerable for age, distinguished for insight into human nature, remarkable for independence and courageous self-assertion, devoted to the welfare of her race, she has been, for the last 40 years, an object of admiration to social reformers and people everywhere." Sojourner Truth was posthumously inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame in 1981. She was also inducted in the Smithsonian Institution's list of 100 most significant Americans. An incredible inspiration and someone who is never to be forgotten for the spirit and the presence of God within her and her God-given passion to pursue her inspiration. Breathe deeply and relax now as we enter into our time of inner contemplation, meditation, and integration of today's message. let us affirm peace within our hearts, within our minds, within our lives. Let us bless Russia and Ukraine. Let us bless all of our world leaders. Let us know that whatever it is we need to learn from this, that we learn and learn it now. Jacob wrestled with the angel all night. And Jacob said, I will not let you go until you bless me. And so it is with the law of mind action. We hold on and hold on to things that are more habit than for our highest good. But one day, there comes a call to freedom within each of us, within our soul, within our heart, within our mind and our body. And it says, be free. Be all you were created to be. And be at peace. Be at peace. And let us give thanks for freedom in our minds, in our hearts, and in our world. And so it is, now and always. Amen. This is our time in the service where we bless our tithes and offerings that we would share with Unity of San Luis Obispo to enable us to tithe a portion of all of our gifts to support organizations that honor civil rights and respect our planet Earth. And so, take a deep breath and hold your offering in your hand or in your heart. And remember, please, the law of giving and receiving. As you give, so shall you receive. Let's speak the words of our prosperity affirmation together. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I give and all that I receive.
Here's a great jazz standard from the terrific tenor sax player Benny Golson, of course also a composer. He wrote this in 1956. It's called Whisper Not. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. it out by Benny Golson, 1956.
That's such a fun one. Did you have a good time, Brett?
Okay, of course I enjoyed it.
And of course, we enjoyed it too. Thank you so much once again, Brett Mitchell and Matthew J. Evans, for a great contribution to our music program. You guys are terrific. I also want to honor Benny Golson, our Black History musician for today. Not only was he a great sax player, but a wonderful composer, and one of the topics of discussion in the Tom Hanks film Terminal. He goes from his country to the United States, gets trapped in the terminal, and all he wants to do is get Benny Golson's autograph. And so Benny makes an appearance later on in the film, and I just want to say thank you to Benny Golson for his incredible contribution to the world of jazz. Let's sing our peace song, shall we?
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, a peace that was meant to be. With God as creator, united all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every breath I take, let this be my joyful vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
And now let's speak the words of our prayer for protection. Together, the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. Friends, please press the like button and share your comments with us. We truly love to hear from you. Also, check our website, unityofslow.com. We are available. There's some wonderful things on the website. If you want to get in touch with us, please feel free to do so via the website or Facebook. God bless you and have a wonderful week. You deserve it.
Every single person living peace in what we do. Only then will our dream come true. Only then will our dream come true. Only then will our dream come true.